When evaluating the results of any poll regarding overtime pay, several factors must be considered to ensure an accurate interpretation of the data. Firstly, the number of employees within a company significantly influences the total overtime pay. A larger workforce, even with the same average overtime hours per employee, will likely exhibit a higher total overtime pay compared to a smaller company. This is simply because there are more employees accruing overtime hours. Secondly, the size or value of each job plays a critical role in determining overtime pay. Jobs that demand a higher level of expertise or are inherently more valuable to the company often command higher overtime pay rates. This reflects the specialized skills and increased responsibility associated with these positions. Thirdly, the time required to complete a job directly impacts the likelihood of overtime. Jobs that are time-consuming or require extended hours to finish are more prone to resulting in overtime pay. Efficient time management and resource allocation are crucial in mitigating this factor. Finally, bootlegging, which refers to unauthorized or unrecorded overtime work, can significantly distort overtime pay figures. This unethical practice artificially inflates overtime expenses and undermines the accuracy of any overtime pay analysis. These factors can collectively impact poll results, leading to potentially misleading conclusions. For instance, companies with larger workforces or more valuable jobs may report higher overall overtime pay, even if their average overtime hours per employee are comparable to companies with smaller workforces or less valuable jobs. Similarly, jobs that are inherently lengthy or susceptible to bootlegging may exhibit higher overtime pay compared to jobs that can be completed quickly or are less prone to such practices. It's essential to recognize these nuances when interpreting overtime pay polls. Such polls may not provide a universally accurate representation of average overtime pay across all employees and industries. However, they can offer valuable insights into the overtime pay practices within specific companies or industries, provided that the influencing factors are carefully considered. The number of employees in a company has a direct correlation to the amount of overtime it may have. A larger company logically has a higher chance of needing to use more overtime. This is not to say that the employees are less efficient or more efficient. It just means that the volume of work to be done may be a larger quantity compared to a smaller employer, and that is something important to factor. The size and value of each job will also factor in. For example, an electrician's rate may be different from the rate of a general laborer. So, if a poll is done and it only specifies job value, then it can be difficult to know the true story behind the data. If a poll is taken on the time spent per job, then this can also impact overtime. If it takes an employee longer to complete their job, they might accrue more overtime. This does not mean the person is not efficient, but could simply reflect the fact that the particular task at hand is more complex and or requires a longer time to accomplish. Finally, bootlegging has an effect on the overtime pay. Bootlegging, in this case, refers to employees working overtime without authorization, or they may be logging overtime hours that were not actually worked. This unethical behavior has the effect of artificially inflating overtime pay figures. It is important to try to remove these figures from the data if possible. The factors can impact the poll results in several ways. Firstly, the companies with a larger workforce or more valuable jobs may have higher overall overtime pay, even if their average overtime hours per employee are the same as companies with smaller workforces or less valuable jobs. Secondly, jobs that take longer to complete or are prone to bootlegging may result in higher overtime pay than jobs that can be completed in a shorter period of time or are less likely to be bootlegged. When evaluating overtime pay polls, consider the factors presented. The poll results may not accurately reflect the average overtime pay for all employees across all industries. However, it can provide valuable insights into the overtime pay practices of specific companies or industries. In summary, to ensure a comprehensive understanding of overtime pay dynamics, the following key aspects should be carefully examined. Firstly, thoroughly investigate the number of employees within the organization, as it directly correlates with the potential for accumulated overtime hours. Secondly, diligently assess the inherent size and value of each job role, recognizing that positions requiring specialized expertise often warrant higher compensation rates, including overtime. Thirdly, meticulously analyze the time allocation for each task or project, identifying potential bottlenecks or inefficiencies that may contribute to extended work hours. Fourthly, vigilantly monitor for any instances of bootlegging or unauthorized overtime, as these practices can significantly skew overtime pay calculations and distort accurate financial reporting. By systematically addressing these factors, organizations can gain a more accurate and nuanced perspective on their overtime pay expenditures, enabling them to make informed decisions regarding resource allocation, workforce management, and overall financial performance. It is important to keep in mind the number of employees, the size or value of each job, time spent per job, and bootlegging when coming to a conclusion about the poll.